What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to an animated short for Star Rail. I was not at all expecting this, but I'm really curious to see what it's about. Obviously, as Fei Zhao in the thumbnail, so it'll probably have to do with her to some degree. But yeah, I don't know what to expect, so I'm just going to get straight into it. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, and leave a comment on your thoughts. Let's get into it. It's been a minute since we got one of these. Oh? Split imagery? Oh! Interesting. I already like this framing. Oh, this is fun. I can jing you on. I like how they have one be the primary activity thing so far. Unless it's all sort of equal in what's going on or whatever. Interesting difference in their meals. I like the audio mixing there. I'm not too surprised that it's still the Japanese voice actors. I understand the circumstance a little bit better now. Alright. Hi, Jojo. Oh my god, it's not even 10. Ooh. This is really fun. God, she's fast. Oh, some kind of generic crime? Okay, is she just going faster, or is she so incredibly lightweight that she can jump on kites? That's a pose. Oh, whoa. Oh, this is so fun aesthetically. Okay, she's just that fast. Okay, she's a speedster. Ow. All that by 10. The music's really solid. Oh my god. She got here before him. Wow. Okay. That was a lot more laid back than I expected. So first, I just would like to acknowledge that this is a great framing device that is pretty immediately identifiable what's going on. We have just the down the middle split of the perspectives, so we're getting two different scenes at the same time, so we can immediately compare the difference of these two generals. We interestingly enough first get Jing Yuan's hand as he reaches up towards the alarm clock, as he turns it off, but Fei Zhao just swats her alarm, as we then get shots of them waking up, or rather, Fei Zhao waking up and Jing Yuan going back to sleep. So their alarms are set at 7. I want to keep a rough track of the timetables of this because it's just fun. We get Fei Zhao waking up, stretching, as we have Jing Yuan just still in bed. Both of their beds are fairly messy, but hers is definitely messier than his. His is really just messy because he's clumped up in his blanket and stuff, where hers is just a mess of pillows and sheets and stuff. We get our first sign of how fast she is, given the fact that there is no real in-betweening happening from her sitting on her bed, looking towards the window, and her pulling the curtains open. There's no frames of movement, it's just her suddenly being there. which when I first saw it, I initially thought it was just a fun aesthetic thing, very anime styled to have fast, jumpy movements, but evidently that is also just a factor of her capabilities, is she just is incredibly fast. We see that with her cleaning up her bed, getting it all nice, and she takes a moment just to admire her at work, just first thing in the morning. Jinyuan's still asleep, the cat wakes up before him. Beizhou has a fun little plushie, I guess, which is aestheticized after her. She flicks it, it rocks back and forth a little, and as we get to her doing some more of her just daily morning routine, we have the cat all the way up onto Jinyuan's face, licking him, that kind of thing. It's 7:30, and it's at this point that Jinyuan has woken up. So they only have about a 30-minute difference in when they wake up, but they have the same timing of alarm, which says something. We have some immediate differences in how they spend their time. Jinyuan is watering a garden while yawning. He's still not fully awake, while Feixiao is already into her morning exercise. And she also does morning exercise. And as I was saying in the initial viewing around this point, but sort of poorly, was that I like how during this split perspective direction, very rarely is there something actively happening on both sides, and if it is thematically tied, like the image of their alarm clocks, them checking the time, as we'll see in a moment, that kind of thing. Not to say nothing is happening on one of the sides while stuff is happening on the other, but the focus of attention is on one rather than the other. For the beginning, it was entirely Feixiao as she was doing stuff because Jinyuan was just still in bed. Basically nothing was happening on his end while things were happening on hers. But then we get the slight difference here when they start their daily stuff. This is the most, like, distinctly two different things are happening, but it's just for a moment, and it's pretty easy to understand what's going on. And we're given a moment to just solidify what is happening in both scenes before it brings the focus to Jinyuan moving into his face so they can have this fun little interaction with the bird coming out of his hair like usual, while Feixiao is just in the same running animation, basically. But then we get a close-up of Feixiao's face and a close-up of Jinyuan's pocket with his phone in it. So they both get this alarm, but I like even just the subtle difference of, for one of them, it's on a smartphone, the other, it's on like a smartwatch Fitbit type thing. Just shows the difference in priorities, I guess, and it gives us this framework that they are supposed to have a meeting of generals for a discussion. And immediately we get Feixiao saying, oh, it's still early, I have time, where Jinyuan is getting fully dressed and preparing to head out. It's at this point where we get the time again, being 8:30. An hour has passed since Jinyuan woke up, and it seems Feixiao had roughly an hour-long exercise. So in many ways, Feixiao is correct. We don't know the exact amount of time they would normally take to commute, but that's an hour and a half, plenty of time realistically. We get them preparing their first meals of the day, their breakfast, and immediately there is a distinction in what kinds of foods each of them has. Jinyuan's is all kinds of more traditional Eastern foods, where Feixiao is more Western in style, with eggs and sausage and tomatoes and all that kind of stuff, and what looks like ketchup, that kind of thing. And even just in their utensils, one's using chopsticks, the other is using some kind of like fork. Just immediately it's clear the differences in their kind of typical meals and what that can imply to us about their daily lives, let alone just the different parts of the Zanzhou they live in. And to an extent that expands out also to the scenery and aesthetics of their surroundings. Once again showing the distinction between the two, we have Feixiao basically dual wielding, sandwich in one hand, fork in the other, eating from one after another back and forth, while Jinyuan is holding his bowl and his chopsticks and going one thing at a time, showing he's much more of a methodical, slower person. That's what the entire comparison is being here. And in line with that, Feixiao finishes her meal way before Jinyuan. We get her throwing off her essentially pajamas and hopping into the shower. All this time, Jinyuan's still eating, and by the time he's done with his meal and preparing to leave, Feixiao is still in the shower. Jinyuan's able to go around and start talking to some of the Cloud Knights. By the time that Feixiao is done with her shower, we get some really great sound design right here where we have Feixiao using a hairdryer directly on her ear, and we get the sound in our ear. Now, an interesting tidbit is that, I don't know if this is a mistake or not, but regardless, it works nonetheless. She's using the hairdryer on her left ear perspective-wise, because we can tell by the shape of her hair that she's oriented forward. So this is her left ear, but we hear it in the right ear, which I'm guessing is just either a mistake or a design choice because of the fact that her entire scene is on the right side. That's entirely possible. I actually just real quick went over some of the audio again to double check something, and actually I think in general, the audio audio for Fei Zhao's side is more on the right, and Jin Yuan's side is more on the left. It's just much more pronounced when you have this loud hairdryer in the ear. So in that sense, it definitely is an intentional design decision, despite it being her left ear. Regardless, it still works. It's great sound design having the thing that's on the left be in the left ear and vice versa. It just works. It just works. And it was just a lot more subtle for everything else. Here we get another reminder for Fei Zhao, because she's not even out of the house yet. She's not even dressed. At which point we see her getting a bit smug as we have her smearing away just to smear back now in her outfit, showing that she is just so incredibly fast that she can get in and out of her outfit immensely quickly, which is fun. Very much shows her style of character. And this actually gets to an interesting thing about this is throughout the storyline so far, she's been much more grounded, where this is painting her as the much more high energy kind of character, bouncing off the walls type thing, which is just an interesting contrast from how we've seen her before. To an extent, it makes sense. I like it. It's nice to have a different kind of general. It would largely be uninteresting if every general was this calm, methodical person. Now, obviously, we can tell that she is capable of such things. That's probably what makes her a good general, but she also is, by her nature, much more of a high-energy person, it would seem. And then as she says, all right, let's move out, we get this fun perspective shot as we get the sight of where she's trying to get to, and then we pull back through the just entire city that she is needing to move through until we get to her, to the point that where she's going is not even on the horizon. But she's not worried. She knows she can get there, as she suddenly bursts out at full speed to the point that we basically have no frames of her moving forward. At which point we get the time again. It's 9:50. She let herself just take the morning slow and stuff for almost the entire time. She has 10 minutes to cross the entire city. And it's at which point we get the much more explicit showing of her sheer speed, with all of these crazy blurs and lines coming off of her as she moves through the space. I believe making use of a lot of 3D elements to allow her to move through the space a lot more seamlessly. But everything is like distorting around her as she moves. We're just getting these close-ups of her face as she's moving. She just comes out into the skyline as suddenly she notices something happening, as, like I called it out, a generic crime is happening. There is a person riding a star skiff through the streets, knocking things over, sending people flying, with presumably a ton of stolen goods on it, given that those are all chests. At which point, noticing this, she runs along the kites, which I guess if she's going fast enough, that could work, but I don't know the physics well enough of that to say for certain. And then she lands, holds her pose for a moment, where we get these super nice stylized backgrounds on top of these various people who are in the midst of this chaos. Things are about to go horribly for them, but she is just moving with intense speed to make sure everything's all right, nobody gets hurt, that kind of thing. And then she lands on the skiff, makes sure all the packages are well kept, and this guy is just fucking in the air because she's altered the trajectory of the skiff. And before he can even react or anything, she's kicked him in the face, so that it'll go flying once effectively time resumes, because let's face it, this is a time stop for all intents and purposes. But at this point, it goes from 10 to 10:01. She is officially late. But that's as late as it is for her to get there. She's eating some of the snacks that I believe Jin Yuan brought, based on the looks of things, and we just get some idle conversation between them as Jin Yuan asks about if Fei Zhao is used to the food on the Luofu or whatever, and she responds in kind, just being like, yeah, it's a bit mild, but you know. At which point we have him, who I'm fucking forgetting the name of, but the third general we've met, just sort of poking at her, saying, I didn't expect the Merlin's Claw could also be delayed, despite the fact that she's a minute late. At which point she doesn't even really respond to it specifically. She just sort of responds back generally by saying, with an invitation such as this, I can't just come empty-handed, which isn't immediately clear what she means to us or them, but she winks at them as she says it really cutely, as the criminal that she kicked fly into the room and crash into the ground. At which point it becomes immediately clear to me, at least, what happened there, which is she was moving so fast that in the amount of time it took between her kicking him and him moving due to the force of the kick through the air to crash land here was longer than it took for her to get here after kicking him and start eating and having a chat, which just shows how extremely fast she is despite the fact that she was a minute late. Oh no. And at this point, the generals are like, what's this? And she just all smiles, goes, just a little gift of reverence, poking fun at things. She solved a crime on the Luofu and now she's eating. Like, there's no big deal. And that is it. There isn't really a ton of narrative or character thematic stuff to get into here that I didn't already touch on. So I think I'll leave it there. I really enjoy the first half of this much more than the second, but the second is really good as well. I'd say the standout parts are the first half here, where we have the split perspective, and then the essentially time stop moment. Those are the two best parts of this to me, as they're just the most interesting. Here we get a very strong comparison between the more laid-back vibe of Jinyuan versus the much more high-energy way that Fei Zhao goes about things. And it's just cool. I like it. And like I said, it's a bit of a different perspective on Fei Zhao than we're used to, but I like it nonetheless. I'm curious to see if we'll get more of that in the next update. But with that, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment on your thoughts if you enjoyed this, that kind of thing. And I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.